Are you ready to unlock the power within? To let go of fear, embrace vulnerability, and step into a life of alignment and fulfillment? Welcome. I'm Valina Stavropoulou, and this is a journey of unbecoming. Discovering a version of yourself you never knew existed. What does it mean to unbecome? It's about release, surrender, radical acceptance, and so much more. But what can unbecoming do for you? In each episode, I guide you on a journey to overcome self-doubt, set empowering boundaries, and uncover the untapped potential within you. Through honest storytelling, insightful interviews and reflections drawn from my own experience of living with MS, you will find inspiration to face life's hurdles, embrace your authentic self, and thrive. Are you ready to cultivate deeper self-love, experience more joy, and live a life guided by purpose? It all starts now. Welcome to the journey of unbecoming, everyone. I'm your host, Valina Stavropoulou. I'm truly excited and grateful to be here with you today for another episode. So this is a space where we meet to return to ourselves when we unravel stories and we release what no longer serves us. And really remember who we were before this world told us who we should be. So in the last episode, I shared a deeply personal story of my own journey. And it was a moment I began to unbecome the version of myself, which was built around expectations, responsibilities, and also labels that I didn't even know I was carrying for years. Today, I want us to expand a little bit more into the same thing of the power of release. Because you see, here's the truth. So much of our suffering doesn't come from who we are. It comes from the labels that we inherited. Those roles that we feel we have to play. And maybe it's your job title or your relationship status or a diagnosis you got like myself. Or even, a quiet belief which you have carried since childhood. These labels can give us structure, but at the same time, they can also box us in. And when they no longer match with the truth of who we are becoming, they start to feel like a cage. So in this episode today, we are going to challenge those identities and labels, and we will look at those stories we absorbed and we inherited. And I want you to really ask yourself, is this really who I am? Or is this just who I've become? Or I've been told actually to be in my life? So, and then I want us to go a little bit further as well. You see, unbecoming isn't just about letting go. It's about stepping into your truth. It's about reclaiming your power, your voice, and consciously then choosing the story that you want to live from now on. So if you've ever felt stuck into a role or defined by a label in your life that doesn't feel like you anymore, this is the very episode that it's your permission slip. So take it like this. It's your permission to start again, to write a new chapter, a chapter that feels expansive, a chapter that feels that is aligned with your values, and something that is deeply true. So let's begin with a question that might seem simple on the outside, but actually it holds so much power underneath. Why do we cling so tightly to labels and stories, even when they don't no longer work for us? At its core, the answer is profoundly human. We hold on because labels gives us three essential things we all crave. First and foremost, a sense of safety and control. Secondly, a way to feel valued and understood. And thirdly, we all crave a story, we create a story that makes sense of our past. So let's analyze this a little bit further. In a world that feels quite uncertain, our identities give us something solid to hold on to. They definitely offer predictability. It's some sort of routine. And, it's a role that we know how to play. So like me, for example, back when I was HR manager, I was really tied to my role, understandably, because it was a title that I worked so hard to build upon. And it came with structure. I knew what I was doing, so it was very clear. And, it was that sense of knowing of who I was and how I fit in and what was expected from me. But beneath that certainty, I began to feel some sort of resistance, like some sort of nagging. And that nagging was that I felt that I was meant to be doing something deeper, to go a little bit further, to just expand in a way more. So stepping away from that identity and let alone start introducing myself later as a life coach and hypnotherapist, believe me, it was terrifying. You see, safety, even when it's limiting, can feel better than the absolute unknown, right? And then think about it, like labels help us feel seen. Firstly, they let the world know what to expect from us, but at the same time, they let us know how to belong. Sometimes we pick up roles that feel admirable, like, oh, I'm a high achiever, or I'm always there for everyone. I'm in control. I'm the ones that keeps everything together. And other times we fall into roles that reflect our own pain. Marisa Peer, the founder of the Rapid Transformational Therapy, is the method of my training as a hypnotherapist. She speaks of 4 common roles we unconsciously adopt. And what are these roles? It's the hero, so the perfect, the rescuer, so, the carer, the victim, and the rebellious one. And how would those roles manifest? I'll just give you an example of how they may sound. So the perfect, so the hero one may sound like, I have to be perfect. Anything less will let the others down. Then the carer, the rescuer, is like, I can't rest until everyone is okay. Oh, the others, they always have priority. I'll do myself later. Then it's the victim one, which is that part when we say to ourselves, oh, I feel stuck. Like everything is going against me. Nothing is working. I'm so unlucky in my life. I'm sure we all said that. And then the last one, like the rebellious, it's when someone really doesn't follow a rule. So, they do things in their own way. Chances are when I talk about those roles, you'll recognize yourself in one or more of them. But these roles, they begin as survival strategies, but slowly become identities we carry with us. And we can carry them for years. And now, the last part, like we all create a narrative that makes sense of our own past. The stories we tell ourselves, whether we speak about them out loud, like to friends, to family, or we kind of like have them in our head, we whisper them internally, are how we make sense of our world, of our journey. So sometimes these stories are not even ours to begin with. They were inherited, they were adopted, they were shaped by others' expectations or obviously from past pain. But we still hold them as truth. We could say, I'll never succeed. I'll always have to be strong. I have to be perfect to be loved. That's actually a love. But think about it for a minute. These are not just thoughts. They are lived truths that they shape how we live, how we lead, how we show up in the world. But just because a story has felt true in the past, it doesn't mean that it has to define your future. So if the stories has shaped us for so long, what happens when they no longer fit? What do we do when our truth begins to ask for more? And once we start questioning the labels we have worn for years, something really powerful happens. We begin to notice that many of those identities that weren't chosen from us, from our actual truth, but from obviously the need to survive, to be accepted, at the end of the day, to protect our own hearts. The realization, it can feel very tender. So I want to share very quickly a client's story with you. Let's call my client Tina. So Tina, for most of her adult life, she was climbing the corporate ladder. She was the high achiever, the decision maker, the person that everyone turned to. So her identity was built around being the capable, the respected, the one that was always in control. Then what happens? In her mid-30s, she became a mother. And of course, everything changed. And it wasn't just her routine, but it was her entire sense of who she was. The strengths that had once defined her, which were her efficiency, the structure, the certainty, all these suddenly felt outside of seeing. I mean, whoever has become a mother, clearly they could tell us how difficult it is. You know, motherhood didn't follow a checklist, doesn't follow a checklist, and it's so unpredictable and it's so messy. It's at times can feel quite overwhelming. So, time didn't just, Tina really like felt completely disoriented. She felt lost. And she felt that all this ground that she was building, this foundation that she was building for, in her life, it was no longer there. And that led to a question that she hadn't asked herself before. She said, if I'm not the one who holds everything together, then who am I? What am I doing? So this wasn't just a lifestyle, a shift in her lifestyle. This was a deep identity unraveling. And underneath it all, she discovered that something actually she's never named before, she's never admitted to herself before, something she didn't even know, but she kind of discovered it along the way. It was that quiet story that she was living for up until then, for almost like for her first years, all of her years. So she was the good one. She was the one that meant always to have everything together, the one that met everyone's expectations, and that her worthiness actually meant not disappointing anyone. It's what had kept her safe and what has helped her up until then to feel that she was successful and she succeeded in life. But at the same time, it also distanced her from her own truth. So over time, she realized that she had been editing herself. She was shrinking and softening and staying into the lines out of fear that being herself might rock the boat, understandably. So she had built a life really that outside was looking solid, but inside that stability was starting to feel like a cage. And one day when we started working together, she actually had this breakthrough and this kind of moment of honesty. And she said to me, I think this version of me doesn't fit anymore. Like, what do we do? And maybe you felt that too. Maybe a life shift, like a breakup, like a new role, something shook your foundation of who you thought you were. And suddenly you found yourself asking, who am I now? If I'm not the perfect, the achiever, the strong one, the caretaker, who am I? But here is what I want to say to you. There is nothing wrong with the roles you've played. Those roles, they helped you survive, succeed, but also feel safe. They were part of your becoming, right? But it's also okay, actually more than okay, to admit that you don't feel comfortable with them anymore and that you can outgrow them. Because underneath every single role, every label, and every expectation, there is definitely a version of you that doesn't need to earn your worth. You don't need to perform. You don't need to prove. You don't need to push the whole time. You simply get to be. And if you've been nodding along the way, maybe even feeling tender as you recognize parts of you, part of your own story, know that you're not alone. Rest assured you're not falling apart. You're unbecoming. So you can definitely return empowered to the truth of who you really are. So, where do we begin when we are ready to let go of what no longer fits and open ourselves, like expand ourselves to who we are becoming? Like any meaningful shift, it starts with awareness. We can't release what we're not understanding, what we're not conscious of. So, today I want to walk you through 4 powerful steps to help you begin rewriting your story. Feel free, while I'm going through the steps, to just pause the episode and jot things down. As you probably get to know me from the previous episodes, I absolutely love journaling. So I'd like us to begin with a simple prompt. So I want you to think or write down, what are the 3 first things that you say when someone asks you, tell me about yourself? Are those things truly you? Or are they simply what you do, what you've been through, or what you've been taught to lead with? Most instinctively, all of us, we name a role, a title, or a trait. But when we go beneath the surface, something much more real begins to emerge. And that's our beliefs. The quiet stories we've been telling ourselves for years. And that's where true awareness begins, which brings us to the next step, the next journal prompt. What beliefs have shaped how you see yourself? Where did those stories come from? Your upbringing, your culture, a painful moment from your past. And are these stories still true today? Or do they still feel true because you've carried them for so long? This isn't about blame, this is about clarity. It's so easy to confuse who we are with what we do, especially when we've been praised, needed, or validated for our roles. But let me tell you this, you're not your role. You're not just the one that holds it together, the fixer, the perfect, the achiever. Those roles may have shaped you, but they do not define you. You're not your job title, you're not the diagnosis, you're definitely not the checklist of responsibilities. You're a whole, evolving human being with value that exists beyond performance. And when we begin to create just a little space between our identity and our roles, something profound happens. We start to breathe and we begin to remember ourselves. That shift prepares the ground for what comes next, our last step. Reframe and rewrite the narrative. Here's where real transformation begins. This is where you take the pen and you begin to write your new chapter. Language is energy. And the words we choose, they shape the story we live. When we internalize old roles, especially the ones that they're wrapped up to self-sacrifice, perfectionism, control, they become scripts we act out unconsciously. But the good news is that you can change the script. So that looks like, for example, if you say, oh, I always mess up things, try, I'm learning through every experience. I'm allowed to grow. And you see the difference, like the softness that comes from the second phrase. Or the one that we all say, like, oh, I'm so unlucky. You can say, life may not always go as planned, but I trust that things are unfolding for me and they're not against me. Small shifts in language create big shifts in your identity. Every time you speak with compassion to yourself and every time you soften the words you use towards yourself, you're rewriting your story, you're rewriting your narrative. And think about it, you're basically telling your nervous system, I'm safe now. I don't have to hustle for my worth. Okay, and a last one, I promise. I want you to write or think, if I let go of this old label, what new space might open up for me? Because when you reclaim your voice, meaning when like new space might open up, like meaning you start reclaiming your power, you start stepping into those new steps, you start seeing a version of yourself you never knew existed. It may feel the unknown, but this is actually where the true story begins. And now you might be wondering what happens next, like how does it feel when we finally break free? It's not loud. It's not some sort of like earth-shattering situation. It's subtle and it's quiet. Think about it like a breath you finally take when you didn't realize you were holding it in. So begin to notice that there is more space inside of you and there is little more softness, there is less striving, and you start trusting yourself more. Not because you have all the answers suddenly, but because you're finally listening. You're finally listening to that voice. And slowly, life feels less like something to perform and more like something to be in. And this is the power of unbecoming. So let's live today with no more doing, but with a deeper sense of being. And I want you to know this. You are not the labels you're given. You are the author now. You have the power. This journey might not always be easy because it asks for reflection. But I promise you, it is always worth it. And I want to quote something that Martha Beck says. She says, the way to find your true self is to lose the false self, right? Who can resonate with that? So thank you so much for joining me today. I truly love sharing this space and this experience with you. As always, I would love to hear what came up for you. Let me know what labels you're releasing. Let me know what truths you're stepping into. You can always connect with me. Send me an email at my email, valina@mindhierarchy.com. You can also find me on Instagram at mindhierarchy, and you can go to my website, mindhierarchy.com. You can go to the work with me section and then see what I'm doing for the world, what I can do for you. And don't forget, join me every first and third Thursday at 9 a.m. Pacific time here on Transformational Talk Radio. Next time, we'll explore something really, really beautiful. It's the art of letting go, how to release control, and how to find freedom. Until then, thank you so much, everyone. Remember to breathe, trust your becoming, and keep unbecoming. Bye. I'm Valina Stavropoulou, and you have been listening to The Journey of Unbecoming. discovering a version of yourself you never knew existed. Tune in every first and third Thursday at 9 Pacific on Transformation Talk Radio for a space where you are seen, heard, understood, and deeply supported. Remember, you do not have to find your way back to your heart alone. Each episode invites you to explore what unbecoming means for your mind, body, spirit, and emotions, a transformative process of releasing what no longer serves you. This show is not just about overcoming challenges. It is about celebrating the beauty of letting go and stepping boldly into a life of joy, purpose, and self-confidence. For more information and to connect with me, visit mindhierarchy.com.